Jason, you mentioned a little bit ago about there are costs involved with getting a loan, and we call them so-called, closing costs. What are those?
So closing costs are paid to all of the third parties that are involved.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have typically some sort of lender fees. You're going to have title fees, which those are typically the most expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And that, depending on where the property is located, it could be, and what I mean by that is what state it's in.
Mm-hmm.
You could have a title company, or you could have a title attorney that is involved with that. You have things like an appraisal, and then sometimes you'll have other kind of third-party expenses with regards to making sure whether or not the property's in a flood zone,
Mm-hmm.
pest inspections, those sorts of things. But I think ultimately it's important that veterans know that they are ultimately responsible for those closing costs. One of the things that I'm told quite often is, well, I didn't have to pay closing costs last time.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you didn't have to do that, that was because either your lender was able to give you a credit for it, the seller paid for it, or some other third party contributed or paid for it. But I think it's important to know and remember that you, as the veteran, are always responsible for paying for your own closing costs.
Yeah, so when the seller paid for it, that's where we negotiate into the price of the home. We're going to offer you this amount, but we need to credit back at closing. So really it kind of becomes a little bit, it's part of the purchase price of the home, but they're not paying it separately.
Correct. And that's going to be largely dictated by market conditions.
Mm-hmm.
When it's something like a seller's market, you're most likely not going to be able to get any money from the seller as far as concessions to pay towards closing costs. If it's a buyer's market where there's an abundance of inventory, sellers are having a hard time, they're going to be more willing to offer concessions, incentives, anything that they can do to try to motivate people to be able to buy their house.
Mm-hmm.
And again, like you said, they'll just negotiate it as part of the contract price. Sometimes there's even a split, right? Like maybe Darren would negotiate a certain percentage or a specific dollar amount, and then the veteran would be responsible for anything over, above and beyond that amount.
Yeah, and I always remind my veterans that there are some costs that are paid during the process. You mentioned, having an inspection done. Those are anywhere from $600, $500 to $600, depending on what they want. Appraisal, which is required. The appraisal fee on that is, what is it?
$750 here in Utah.
$750 in Utah. It varies from place to place. It's gone up quite a bit the last couple of years as demand has gone up. So they need to plan between $1,000 and $1,500 that they're going to pay in the process, along with then the loan-related costs.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
So there are some costs along the way, along with paying at the end.
Okay.